What's your creepiest real-life story? When I was little, around 8, I hated going to the dentist. He always made me uncomfortable for some reason. I remember thinking his smile stretched too far and seemed forced, like clowns. Anyway, my mom always came with me, and went back so I wouldn't be scared. One day, my dad had me, divorced parents, and had to take me to the dentist, but tried to make me go back alone so he could sit out in the lobby doing whatever. The assistants had to literally drag me back to the room and you could hear me screaming and crying down the hall, refusing to sit in the chair. Finally, my dad came back to get me. Irritated I'd made a scene, he rescheduled my appointment to when my mom would have me, and we just left. He made a big deal about how bad I was acting and told my mom she was spoiling me and all sorts of shit. 2 weeks later, it's on the news that my dentist was charged with child pornography, after molesting children under anesthesia and photographing it. When I was little, my mom would take me to Kmart and let me wander around the toy section while she shopped, normal in the 70s. One day, as I was playing Simone Says, an old man walked up to me and was making small talk while I played. He eventually told me to come with him and took me by the hand. We walked right down the main center aisle of the store right towards the exit sign in the back. As we crossed the last row, I looked to the right and saw my mom at the end of the row. I told him I saw my mom and had to go. I pulled away my hand and ran down to her. I didn't tell her what happened because I didn't want to get in trouble for going with a stranger. It was several years later that I realized that I had probably narrowly avoided being molested, kidnapped, or worse. In a cold winter night in a remote village from Quebec, Canada, in 1990, me and my 2 brothers were asleep. We were 1, 3, and 6 years old. In the middle of the night, someone entered our house without knocking, walked around and was talking to himself. Our house is 2 miles from the village, in a rural area. My father woke up, went to the living room where the guy was. He had a car accident 1 mile from our house with his buddy who died instantly, and his scalp fell in front of his face, so the first time my father saw him, he saw a man with no face. He was drunk and his body was frozen. He was speaking to himself, J. Weiss Maria, J. Weiss Maria. Which means I'm gonna die. The fact that his face was partially frozen might have saved his lives, preventing him to lose too much blood. My father took him to the hospital at 25 kilometers from our house by car. He did survive. To this day, my father is still blessing the fact that we never woke up during the night with all the noise. Went camping with some friends on hill a few kilometers out in the woods from one of the guy's house. There's a few hiking/four-wheeling trails in the area that lead up to the hill, so it's known by the locals. It was about midnight. We had a fire going and we're just sitting around having a good time. Then the guy, there was 4 of us, sitting opposite of me, yells, "Who are you?" I turn around and there's this man, about 6 feet tall, staring at us from the edge of the woods with a big rock in his hand. One guy knocked an arrow in the compound bow we had. The guy across from me grabbed the hatchet and I pulled the knife off my belt. We had no clue what we were doing, but the guy wouldn't say anything to us. He eventually just backed into the woods. No sleep was had that night and we kept a very large fire going. We were partying at a usual party spot by the river, and some dude came out of the woods. He just kept saying weird shit like, "You gotta watch yourself down here, there are some bad folks around here," and when asked who he was he just said, "I'm nobody." We were all a little sketched out, and basically told the guy to fuck off. A couple days later a girl went off the rope swing there and got really fucked up. Someone put fishing hooks all over the bottom of the rope swing and it took chunks of flesh out of her leg. Later we found out that dude was just a guy that lived nearby, and although a creepy drunk, he was harmless. There was a fucked up, probably inbred family that lived up the road that he would warn people about. About 5 years later, last year, they beat some kid up with a log and kidnapped some girl at gunpoint and took her on a joyride. Once I was walking my dog in a park in London, Ontario. There are houses that sit on the edge of the park and back onto the Thames River and hiking trails. It was a pretty hot day and my dog was thirsty, so I brought him to the river to drink. We got down to the river and were behind a house with a large privacy fence that sat on the edge of the park. While my dog was drinking, I heard loud banging noises coming from the backyard, like a hammer. I thought somebody was building a shed or something. All of a sudden the hammer stops and a man says, "Shut up. Nobody knows you're here." And the banging began again. I froze in fear and then ran up the bank back into the park. I was now directly beside said creepy house. A man came out of the backyard gate in fatigues with a rusty old wheelbarrow, heading towards 2 quintessential kidnapping vans parked in front of his house. He noticed me looking at him as I was walking past, set down the wheelbarrow and just stared at me until I was out of the park. I called the police when I got home, and I still have no idea what happened. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please press the like button. Also, if you are interested in more, please subscribe and turn on the bell to get notified when a new video is dropped.